And welcome back, everybody, to episode 221 of Two Goalies, One Mic, brought to you by Fatty Beer Company, Western New York's premier market and tap room with over 300 beers to choose from at 7 different Western New York locations. If you need to get a beer, get over to Fatty Beer. Let them know we over here at Two Goalies, One Mic sent you. Of course, shout out to our other sponsor, Extreme Discount Mattress, Western New York's finest selection of mattresses and adjustable beds featuring the cool gel memory foam, two-sided mattress, Tiller latex, organic mattress, Chapman Wells, and of course Scott Living, all for 1/3 to half the supposed sale prices anywhere. Stop at any of their 7 locations across Western New York or check out their website, extrememattress.com. That is extreme with an X. If you're looking for even more savings, check out their new closeout center at 1625 Walden Avenue in Cheektowaga, up to 80% off their already low prices. Save a fortune on one-of-a-kinds, closeouts, and floor samples. Get a quality mattress for literally pennies on the dollar. Extreme Discount Mattress. We sell mattresses for less. A lot less. And remember, if you mention you're a fan of Two Goalies or Mike, you get yourself a free mattress protector. And of course, Impulse Physical Therapy, Western New York, located at 5087 Broadway in Depew, Suite 100, next to Catalyst Fitness. 5-star facility, 5-star staff. They're helping me, hopefully, on my journey back to the ice from my traumatic leg break from last year. Slowly but surely getting there with their staff, led by Alex Peters. Again, make sure you give them a follow and check them out. Slip and fall, hurt in the field, hurt on the ice. They do it all over there. Or if you need sports testing, is done as well for a future combine. So we are joined today by a returning guest, one of our favorite guests. Honestly, I think you may have been one of our first big guests on Two Goalies, One Mic, Sean. Sean McIndoe from The Athletic, most notably known as Down Goes Brown on the old Twitter machine. Sean, thanks for popping in.
Thank you for having me. I'm pumped after that countdown music. That's pretty epic, man. That's good stuff. Did they start playing that in the dressing room before Sabres games this year? Is that what sparked the turnaround? Did Yarmo compose that?
Legend has it that might be it. Probably not. We can say it was on this show.
All right, I'll take it.
Other people are saying it was the beer saber that turned the season around, but that's just me. But yeah, it gets the boys going. That's for sure.
Sean, thanks again for giving us your time. Obviously, especially this time of the season, we know how busy guys like you are.
Thanks for inviting me. There's a Leaf game going on right now, so thank you for giving me something else to do rather than that.
You were, I may have said this the last time we had you on, but I'll say it again. I think you were one of the first guys to pump my tires in an article from 6 years ago, and I always, that's why I was so pumped back then to get you on. That's why I was always so pumped to have you on now. And more so, almost like coming full circle moment, right? The Sabres are finally going to the playoffs. It's finally going to happen.
It is absolutely happening. I'm glad to hear you say it so definitively, because every time I say it's happening, some Sabres fan tells me to knock it off. Until they get the little X next to the name, they don't want to hear it. But yes, it is happening. Our teams have completely switched places. We're not, which is, I guess, good, because it means we're not going to get that Leaf Sabres matchup that would tear the two fan bases apart at some point. We'll save that for a few years down the road. But I gotta say, I don't know if I count as a neutral observer when it comes to the Sabres. I'm loving this season for it, though. I'm loving it for you guys, for the fans, all of it. It's been amazing to watch, and I'm thrilled to see it.
So in your article last week, you put out a poll that the Sabres this season might be the greatest bandwagon team in NHL history, for other fan bases potentially wanting to hop on and support this team through this inevitable playoff run. It seems as though that the chances of making it are close to 100% at the moment. And I read today that the results of that poll were close to 80% from Sabres fans, that were the only people that were supposed to respond, that were allowing other fan bases to come on the bandwagon. Were you surprised that 80% of Sabres fans were cool with everybody just hopping on and supporting this team, even after 14 years of misery?
I was not surprised that the bandwagon being open won the poll. I would have bet a substantial amount of money on that, because I think the Sabres fan base just has that vibe. I expected it to be welcoming. I was maybe a little bit surprised that it was as lopsided as it was. Yeah, I mean, the idea here was, simply that every year there's a few teams that make for a good bandwagon. And obviously, not every fan is interested in that. A lot of fans say, I'd never bandwagon. I'm loyal to my team, and if my team's not in the playoffs, then so be it. But sometimes it's fun to have that little fling, the little spring fling in the playoffs if your team isn't around. And I was just looking at this, going, man, this year it's not going to be close. Everybody's going to be hopping on the Sabres bandwagon. I mean, it's the obvious choice. What I wanted to know was just, how do Sabres fans feel about that? Because on the one hand, it's great. We all like to be popular. We all like it when, everyone's suddenly lining up to come hang out with us. But it's also been 14 years. You guys have been waiting so long for this. There was a part of me wondering, like, would there be a chunk of the fan base that would say, no, this is for us. This is not an open door party. We don't need every fan of some other team suddenly showing up and acting like they're part of this when we're the ones who've suffered through it for as long as we had. And then I figured a big other chunk of the fan base would say, no, bring it all in, more the merrier. Let's have some fun. And that's ultimately what won it. But I was interested to see it because in addition to the poll, I got a lot of feedback and comments and social media and all of that stuff. And I did hear from some Sabres fans saying, no, this is just for us. If you weren't with us in the Zemgus era, then you don't get to be here for the good stuff. But for the most part, pretty overwhelmingly, you guys were cool about it, and you declared that the bandwagon is open and ready for business.
Well, I think it's like, you bring the Zemgus era. At one time he was an NHL All-Star for us, which is crazy. Think about it.
NHL All-Star starter, if I'm not mistaken, voted in. I guess it just was really popular around the league that year. That's the only explanation I can think of.
It was when the players were drafting their own teams, and he was drafted, ironically enough, by Buffalo legend Patrick Kane. So
there you go.
Yeah, listen, I'll let Hurls get to, I'll keep my answer short. I can totally understand fans just wanting this for themselves. But here's the thing, the fans who jumped off, like, how can you blame them? It's from a mismanagement standpoint, player personnel standpoint. We watched this team alienate a Sabres legend and Pat LaFontaine when he left. Going back to the 6 years when I made that phone call, like the misspelling names on jerseys, not doing something as easy as making a deadline for a return of the goat head jersey during the 50th anniversary with Adidas. Like there are so many reasons for fans who have wanted to jump off. So I can't say that I blame them. I hate admitting this, but like we gave up our season tickets at, me and my dad, because like we couldn't go to all 41 games, but we couldn't even give away the games we couldn't go to. And it got to a point like we can't justify this anymore financially. Like the economy, there's no way we could justify it anymore. So like, yeah, I don't blame fans. So if you want to be on board now, not that the team gives you something to root for, I get it. And I welcome any other fan base that wants to jump on too. Even Toronto fans, screw them. I can sympathize with Toronto fans and what they go through every year after year, because we get it. We get it. I'm a Red Sox fan too. And for as long as it took them, the Sabres, just like the Red Sox, made losing an art form for a very long time.
I've always felt like there's like a certain link or a certain unity between fan bases that have either never won a championship, or in the case of the Leafs, it's been so long that none of us were around to see it. I think our buddies out in Vancouver, I think, call it the Sadness Club or something like that. And look, it's been a rough decade for that club. We lost the Blues, we lost the Kings a little bit before. The Blackhawks had been waiting a long time. It's kind of narrowed down, but I always feel like when I'm watching any sport, And I just gravitate to the team that's been waiting forever. I remember rooting on the Cubs in 2016, probably the most famous example of it. Even the Red Sox, who I hate from the AL East from years and years. I was rooting for them in 2004, and so even though there's the rivalry between Buffalo and Toronto, I like there's a connection there as well. And I wouldn't go so far as to think that you guys would have our backs if we made a run, because it's still the whole Toronto center of the hockey universe thing does kind of hang over it a little bit.
Yeah.
But I tell you, man, I'm glad to hear you say you welcome the Leaf fans, because I think there's going to be a ton of them jumping on the bandwagon, because it's just such an easy team to get behind. And especially if you're playing an Ottawa or a Montreal in the first round. I mean, look out. We certainly know how to get down to your arena. Put it that way. We know where all the parking is and all of that. So I don't think they'll be quite as easy to get tickets for these games. But for now, at least until that big playoff matchup in a few years, let's we call a little bit of a truce, and we're certainly rooting for you.
What you just mentioned there strikes a chord with me, because I think a lot of Sabres fans consider the Maple Leafs to be the Sabres' biggest rival, but I don't think many Maple Leafs fans would consider the Sabres to be their biggest rival. So that always creates an interesting dynamic with a team like the Canadiens and the Senators. You have so many other rivals. Do you think that makes it a little bit easier for Toronto Maple Leafs fans to root for the Sabres this playoffs?
Yeah, I mean, it's always been a little weird, right? Because growing up in Toronto, and I'm an old guy, so this is people have to be kind of in my age range for this. But when you grew up in Toronto in the '80s, all our American TV was the Buffalo stations. So that's a big part of the reason why there's so many Buffalo Bills fans up here, because that was our quote unquote local team for the longest time when that's all you got to watch. And I remember watching. I'd watch Sabres games. I'd catch that. That was one of the only other teams that was going to be on a given night. So, the two teams are certainly familiar with each other, and yet for the longest time, being in different conferences, you didn't really have that crossover. And we did finally get it when the Leafs moved over and they played the Sabres pretty much right away in the conference final in '99. But there wasn't one series every 5 decades doesn't really give you a rivalry quite yet. And then we've kind of been waiting for the two teams to be good at the same time. When the Sabres coming out of the lockout early in the cap were near the top of the league, the Leafs were very much not. And then obviously for the last decade or so, it's been the flip side of that. So there hasn't really been the chance to have that great rivalry. But even though it's a lot like Toronto games with Montreal, they just always seem to be good. There always seems to be something happening. There's a lot of fun history between the two teams. You guys tried to take out Phil Kessel way back when.
John Scott.
And, good old John Scott got Dave Clarkson suspended. Boy, we didn't know what we were missing back then. Leaf fans, we were all mad at David Clarkson for jumping in, and now we're sitting there going, oh, okay, so he was trying to protect the star player from getting hurt. Oh, interesting. Okay, yeah, that actually does sound pretty good. But there's a lot of fun between the two teams, and even if it wasn't there, it's such a likable team this year and a likable story. And I do a column every year where I go through the playoff teams and I go, okay, if you're looking for a bandwagon team, here's how we're going to rank them. I don't even know if I'm going to bother this year, because all the things that I typically would look at, the Sabres put a big giant check mark next to every single one. So if I do it, it might have to be okay, here's the 15 other teams ranked before we all just jump on the Sabres bandwagon anyways.
You got a follow, Pearls?
No, you go ahead.
No, well, kind of piggyback on that. I genuinely miss the rivalry of the QEW, man. I've joked about it so many times on this show. Like whenever you see the Ontario license plates in Buffalo on a night where Toronto's in town, you do whatever, you don't vandalize them, but you rub some icy hot maybe underneath the car handle, throw some toilet paper, you have some fun with it, and It hasn't been like that for a long time, not since the Ryan Miller days. And it's I like you, Sean. I cannot wait until both these teams are relevant at the same time, hopefully next year. And that barn is a lot less packed with Leafs fans and more Sabres fans. And I can't wait for it. Because I miss those days, man. It just the atmosphere in Buffalo the day after the Sabres beat the Leafs. It just hit different.
I'll tell you, let's enjoy it this year because it won't last, right? I mean, you guys right now, everybody loves the Sabres. Everybody loves the story. Everyone's rooting for you. It'll probably take about 2 games into the playoffs before somebody's going to do something or say something or whatever. And then it starts to lose a little bit of the luster. And then pretty soon you guys are, the ultimate compliment will be, and nobody will want to jump on the bandwagon because it's like, oh, these guys are so good. How do you root for them? But in the meantime, you guys are, it's looking more and more. I like it's going to be potentially Ottawa, and that's going to be a tough one, but you guys are going to get the Brady Tkachuk experience, and there's going to be a lot of Leaf fans sitting there with their arms crossed, just kind of nodding wisely going, yeah, we've been there. Have fun with that.
I think we're ready. We're ready for the Brady Tkachuk experience. No doubt. Your now you like you said, it could be Montreal. Right now it looks like Ottawa. Your opinion on the entire Atlantic Division this year, because it's absolutely insane. Like the lack of separation between, these teams, between, us at the top of the Atlantic, us, battling with Carolina for the top spot in the East, which I can't even believe I'm saying. And then obviously the wild cards. I mean, it could literally, come down to the final game or two to find out who we're playing.
Yeah, it's been a wild season. There's however it ends up, there's not going to be a single fan out there who would have predicted the division would shake out the way it has, 1 through 8. I mean, we're at the time of year where everyone's looking at their brackets and trying to figure out if they can go 63 for 63 in March Madness, and the odds are 1,000,000,000 to 1 or whatever it is. They're probably about the same for anybody who would have looked at the Atlantic this year and said, you know what, it's probably Buffalo first, probably Toronto and Florida down at the bottom. You would have thought they were crazy. And it's that middle section that is so interesting, and every game's going to matter. And I mean, from your guys' perspective, certainly, getting first place, getting that top seed is good, and it helps, and it opens up the possibility that maybe it's a crossover team. So, maybe you get someone from the Metro, maybe it's Columbus, maybe it's the battle of the bandwagons, because I think Columbus is the other team that checks so many of those boxes. That might split the crowd just a little bit. But it's got to be fun for you guys to sit there and not have to be living and dying with this the way they are in Detroit or Boston or wherever else. And hopefully, as far as you guys are concerned, fingers crossed, they just all bash each other's brains in for the next 3 weeks to get in. And then whoever's left and ends up facing you guys maybe doesn't have as much in the tank as you do.
I think for a long time for Sabres fans, it was just making the playoffs and just happy to be there. It didn't necessarily matter what happens in round 1. And now I think it's shifted to, I think everybody expects this team to at least win 1 round and potentially even more. Do you think, given what's happened in the past 3.5 months, that if the Sabres don't win a round, it would be considered almost a disappointment? And how far do you think this team could go? Do you really believe it could be a 2019 St. Louis Blues type ending for the 2025-2026 Buffalo Sabres?
Are we cup contenders? Should we be going cup crazy, Sean?
You certainly can't rule it out, because this season has just been so bizarre and unpredictable that for anybody to sit there and say, oh, this team can't do it, that team can't do it, I don't buy that. Force my hand, twist my arm. I still think the Lightning are the team to beat in the Atlantic, based partly on their history and all the experience that they have, and just the loaded lineup that they have. And with Connor McDavid's favorite coach leading the way, I think it all adds up to them probably being the favorites. But I mean, you guys, that game a couple of weeks ago, where Tampa came in, and it was watching that Sunday night game, the 8-7 game, obviously I'm referring to, was, I mean, it was the game of the year, and it was just so impressive because you could tell that if I remember right, you guys had beaten Tampa about a week or two before that. And it was kind of like, that was sort of Tampa, like, all right, maybe we didn't take these guys quite so serious. And then they came into that game and it was like, you guys are going to get the real Tampa Bay Lightning tonight. We're going to be hitting, we're going to be in the scrums, we're going to be doing all of it. And you guys just went, all right, we'll take it. Let's see what happens. And what happened was, a game that we're not going to see any 8-7 games in the playoffs. You wouldn't think, but, you guys will have a puncher's chance against the Lightning if it gets there. It is going to be tough in the first round because whoever you end up playing, even though they're going to be a 7 or 8 seed, is going to be a team that has finished strong because that's the only way you're going to get into the playoffs. So there's going to be a little bit of momentum, and you're not a team with a ton of playoff experience. Obviously, by now we've all seen we all know the story with the analytics, the underlying numbers that suggests that, maybe there's a little bit of PDO magic going on here. But at the end of the day, this is one of those great magical runs. And just, you keep it going. And to answer your original question, yeah, if it ends in round 1, that is going to feel like it sucks some of the life out of it, but only some, because this is still going to be a season that you look back on and say that was a hell of a ride. That was really something. And, it kind of brought back some of that spark and passion for a whole chunk of the fan base that had rightly lost it over the years. So, to go out in the first round, that would be tough. I'd like to see you guys at least win a round, and let's get that rematch with Tampa. And when I say we, now I'm talking in general as a fan, just sitting back going, okay, I'm rooting for you, but I'm also rooting for Team Chaos, and I'm rooting for good matchups. And boy, seeing the Sabres and Lightning go at it for 7 straight would really be something else.
Yeah, and we do have Tampa on, I want to say it's the 6th.
Yeah.
So we do get them one more time. But yeah, that would be an electric first round, man, because everybody knows who's watched hockey long enough. That first round is normally the most physical, right? Like you if you're going to get a fight in the playoffs, it's probably going to happen in the first round. Then as teams get eliminated, things start to tighten up, and trying to take less penalties, and but historically that is the round for it to happen. And with them being a division rival, already there being bad blood, I would very much welcome. Honestly, I don't fear any team in the East. I don't. Maybe Carolina a little bit, just because of the style of hockey they play. But I don't fear any team in the East.
There's no team in the East that you look at and go, well, Sabres couldn't beat them.
Yeah.
And so maybe you think that for some of the teams in the West, if a series was played today, but it's not going to be played today. It's going to be played after 3 rounds of playoffs, and who knows. So we're getting way ahead of ourselves to start talking about finals matchups. But screw it, let's do it. I see in the chat, Sabres Stars rematch. Boy,
Lindy Ruff, man, come full circle.
Talk about long-term booking. That's boy, that would really set it up. And God, I don't know if you guys have heard, we have replay review now. So whether that's the way to right the wrongs of the past, or whether it's just the league finding a different way to screw you guys over, I guess we'd have to wait and see.
Could you imagine losing the cup in the cup finals on like an offsides review?
Score the winning goal, and then we get a half-hour review, and then they come out and they go, "Sorry, Buffalo."
I think we've overcorrected on the review process, but that's another discussion for another day. Speaking of Lindy Ruff, he seems like the prohibitive favorite to win the Jack Adams Award. Do you believe that to be true? And if he doesn't win it, who do we need to find, and where do we need to riot? Because I think that he's a mortal lock to win this award.
He should be.
He certainly has a fantastic case. It's a weird one, and I don't, Jack Adams is voted on by the broadcasters, so the writers like me don't get a vote on that as we do for some of the other awards. But we all kind of know what the Jack Adams is, which is that it's not the best coach in the league. It's not even the best coach of the year. it's the biggest surprise of the year. It's all of us collectively at the start of the season saying this is what's going to happen, and then whatever actually happens plays out, and we look at all the teams we were wrong about and we go, well, I mean, either we were all dummies and we missed it, or it must have been the coach. The coach must have done a great job, and especially if that coach is new at the job, then it's very clear. And I think Ruff's got a fantastic case, and I certainly wouldn't be surprised if he won it. It's a really strong field this year as far as what the award typically is. Dan Muse, what he's done with a Penguins team that we all thought was going to stink, has been fantastic. Marco Sturm, if he gets the Bruins into the playoffs, you look over at Joel Quenneville in Anaheim, San Jose, even maybe if they could make it in, there's going to be a lot of candidates. And of course, up to a couple months ago, it looked like it was going to be the John Cooper Lifetime Achievement Award. So there's going to be a lot of different ways that can go. So, hey, fingers crossed. I'd love to see Lindy Ruff win it. But I will tell you right now, the one I'm really looking forward to, and I know, hey, you got Lindy Ruff, you've got Rasmus Dahlin is making the push, maybe getting some Norris love. There's there's any number of candidates. I really want to see the GM of the year voting. I want to see who's gonna be the one who casts the Kevin Adams vote, because it's gonna happen. There's gonna be one at least, and I'm pretty sure no team has ever had more than one GM get votes in the same GM of the year, and you guys might manage to pull that off. So there's a little history for you, a little consolation.
The internet told me he wasn't eligible. Do you believe that to be true? Or is there a write-in candidate?
I didn't know that. I maybe they've changed it, because Scott Howson got votes when he was fired by Columbus. Ironically, I think the year that the Yarmo took over there, he got votes. So maybe they've changed it since then. The GMs vote on their own award. So who knows with them? They may have just changed the rules and not told anyone. But I'd be disappointed if that was the case, because I really want to see. I want to see both. I want to see two GMs in the same team both get the vote in the same year.
I know. I'll respond to that real quick, and I know we got to let you go here, Sean. And I appreciate the time. My opinion has been and always will be, when it comes to that situation on this, is like Kevin Adams had 5 years prior to this to get this team over the hump. He couldn't. He made some good moves. Most notably the most recent, with where he did have Yarmo in the room where those negotiations were happening.
Mm-hmm.
The JJ Peterka for Josh Doan Kesslering deal. You can look back at the Tage contract. It looks like the best contract in hockey right now. But at the end of the day, in my opinion, I think that the team lacked there was a lack of accountability and consequence with this organization. Players were checked out. They weren't starting game. They weren't ready to play. There was just there was too much wrong over the past 2 seasons, especially leading into this year, to sit there and say Kevin Adams should be the GM of the year. He did put this roster together, but when Yarmo came in day one, it's a fact. And even Tage said this. He said, "I have an open door policy. If you don't want to be here, let me know. We'll make arrangements." And then he also said, "If you are not playing up to my standard, I will make sure that there are other arrangements made for where you're going to play from now on." And I think from that point forward, it's things that the culture really started to change. And, people have agreed with me on that. They've disagreed with me on that. That's just my thought process, because I just think that and this isn't a slight against Kevin Adams. I just think there's a much bigger respect factor when it came to Yarmo, given his experience, given his credibility, given the way he came in day one. And I'm even willing to bet that he probably did have a hand a little bit in that deal for Josh Doan and Kesslering, because again, he was in the room. If you have time for one last thing, Sean, I do want to know, you mentioned Rasmus Dahlin getting Norris votes, and I do definitely agree with that. But one of your colleagues at The Athletic, Don Lucian, has him top 10 for MVP votes. Do you think, he won't win it, he won't win it, but is that an actual conversation that holds water? Because given everything he's been through, that we all know he's been through, We just found out yesterday that his fiance is finally coming home to Buffalo. She's in Buffalo. She was welcomed home after what she went through, what they both went through. The heart transplant, her nearly passing away. They obviously lost their child. Everything that he went through, and for him to still be playing at a near point per game pace. And I'll say this right now, and I said it on Twitter, and I'll say now, if they show her on the Jumbotron tomorrow night, if she's there, not only will the roof come off that place, but Dahlin might have 5 or 6 points that night. Just gonna throw it out there. So, does it hold water? Is he deserving of the votes?
You're making a hell of a case. He should hire you to handle the PR when the ballots go out. I mean, look, you're right. He's not going to win it, but he's got a great story. The Sabres have a great story, and if certainly, especially if they finish first in the division, maybe even in the conference, voters look for that. They look at who are the best teams. Okay, who's the best player on that best team? And then that's a guy who starts showing up on some ballots. So, he will, that'll happen. I would be very surprised if we don't see his name show up at least a few times. And then from there, whether he finishes top 5 or top 10 or somewhere else, at the end of the day, it's hard to get too worked up on that. But it'll be a nice, and well-deserved honor, for him to get some love for both that and the Norris, which he's also not going to win because of some of the other guys who have pulled out. But he deserves to be right there and deserves to get the recognition. And sometimes with these awards, even though they're single season awards, they building up a bit of a lifetime resume doesn't necessarily hurt you down the line.
Yeah, I think he's what we talked about lock with the Jack Adams. I think the Masterson is way more likely to win. Obviously, he's shown perseverance, but I guess we'll see. That's all for me. I appreciate your support through all the tough years, Sean. Some of your articles have gotten us through the summer. The quirkiness and the levity that you've brought us through these really tough times, and to be living in it now that we're out on the other side, it doesn't feel real. And I think we're all pinching ourselves, but it's been really cool to be a part of, and we welcome anybody that decided to jump on with us. So cheers to everybody involved.
Enjoy it. Enjoy it however long it lasts, Sabres fans. You've earned it for sure. And you get to the front. You get the prime seats on the bandwagon, but build some extra bleacher seating because there's going to be a whole bunch of us showing up pretty soon.
We built that bandwagon.
Love it. Love it.
Appreciate it, Sean. Well, hopefully, if Sabres make a deep playoff run, we can have you on again.
I love it. I'd love to be there and talk to you guys then.
Awesome. Thanks, John. Appreciate it.
Thanks, man.
Thanks, Ben. That was Sean McIndoe from The Athletic. Again, also most notably known as Down Goes Brown on Twitter. Great guest, man. He is just so well spoken. Hurls, I know I'm a big fan of his writing. I know you are. I remember the first time with you as a co-host when I told you we're gonna have on how pumped you were, and he's always, I didn't even realize he was a Toronto fan, like a deep Toronto fan. Yeah. It's pretty cool to see him speak that fondly of Buffalo.
Yeah, I would say he's one of the more good-natured Toronto fans there is, and he obviously adds a lot of perspective, given that he covers the league. And what I was referencing there, in the summer, he puts out these crazy articles like, if the jersey numbers of the best 5 players on a team in franchise history added up to this number, what does it mean? And all these insane ideas that are always just so interesting. And I think he adds a very, very unique perspective to hockey journalism and the game itself, which is really cool. So it's really nice to hear, and especially in his misery rankings, which the Sabres have been on for years and years and years. And he always references the call and everything else that we've been through. But it's cool to have him on now that we're finally good again. Yeah.
Here we got a comment. You only want to discount Adams' moves because you don't want to admit to. No, we weren't. He was GM. This was his 6th season. We were wrong about him. Where was the team in the standings when he was fired? Stop.
If I believe last place in the East.
Last place in the East. So stop it with that. Just stop it with that. Accountability
Yeah,
and
no, I think
consequence matters. It
yeah,
really,
I
really
just,
does.
like the two things can be true at the same time.
Yeah,
Like, he made some really good moves, but also the team wasn't getting anywhere. And I think it brought a shot in the arm to the room to everybody involved that was absolutely necessary at the time that it came, given that they had already won 3 games at the end of that road trip. I think it was necessary. It was correct. And I think Adams probably wasn't surprised, and I don't think he's necessarily upset about it either. And I'm sure he's been watching this. I'd love if somebody could get to him. I imagine Fairburns tried. I imagine other people have tried for comment. And hopefully once they actually clinch, he will be able to comment on it, because I think had he done it and then they somehow missed, I think he probably would have needed witness protection. So I'm sure he will comment on it. And I'm also positive he's going to get a job, because clearly with some of the trades and some of the picks that he made, he knew what he was doing. He surrounded himself with good people. And I think this could be good for both sides. But I don't think we need to be at each other's throats about Kevin Adams. The franchise is clearly in a much better place than it was 3.5 months ago.
Yeah. One last comment on that. He did not build 99% of this team. He did not. He didn't draft Rasmus Dahlin. All 32 teams were drafting 01 power. He did not trade for Tage Thompson. Stop it with that. Just stop it. He did not build 99% of this team. He just didn't. He didn't. I don't want to hear that. Just stop.
Coming off that topic, one thing I wanted to ask Sean, and I will again if we get him on again. He often ranks the best starting lineups in history for each franchise. And a topic I've seen online recently would be at the end of his career, or even close to right now. Maybe right now is the better discussion. Is Rasmus Dahlin one of the starting defensemen on the all-time Sabres franchise starting lineup?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think he is too. And that's no disrespect to Mike Ramsey and Phil Housley, but I think given what Dahlin has accomplished in his career up until this point, and then this season is the cherry on top, I do believe he would be in that starting lineup.
Yeah, it's real deal primer. He starts we will come out to that subject. Another guy, he didn't draft Samuelsson. He signed him, sure, but anybody would have signed Samuelsson at the time. He just came off incredible 50 games with Dahlin. I hate hearing that he built this team. No, he didn't even draft half of it. So no. Were good moves made? Yes, he did make some good moves, but I'm not going to sit here and per se that, we were wrong about Kevin Adams. The guy had, for the majority of this roster that included Eichel, he had for going into 6 years, and he couldn't get him into the playoffs. So I don't care. Couldn't figure out the goaltending. Couldn't figure it out. So
yeah, and then the other side of it is that it seems like he might have this season with Alex Lyon. That's the best goaltending move that he made in his GM tenure. So I think you can acknowledge that it was the right time, while also giving him credit for what he did. And that's the end of it.
We can give him credit. Yeah, sure.
Nobody should be at each other's throats.
No, it's
any opinion on Sabres Twitter or online with the Sabres right now.
For me, Hurls, it's just annoying. Yeah, okay. Samuelsson, the long-term extension at the time when he signed it, given what we knew in those 50 or some odd games of Dahlin, it looked like a genius move for sure. And then everyone hated it because of the injuries. But any GM probably would have signed him to a bridge deal the first time around. But any GM is making that signing. Just stop. Just please, can we just stop? I'm done. Anyways, moving on. We mentioned earlier with Sean that Rasmus Dahlin's fiance Carolina, she is home in Buffalo. I remember me and you have been pretty active on social media with that. We both kind of started the campaign for the Rasmus Dahlin Foundation. I think when that all kind of simmered down, I think $12,000 or $13,000 was donated to his foundation. Given after we found out when was it the Players Tribune that he came out about it?
I don't think so.
Wasn't the Players Tribune when it was first announced what he had gone through when he went public about it. I just remember how much this city embraced her I mean, nobody knew who she was, leading into that. And now, she's one of us. And I can't wait. I hope she is at that game tomorrow night. And I hope they do show her and welcome her back with open arms. I know the Sabres wives did, because if she is in the house, the roof will fucking come off that place, Hurls.
Yeah, for sure. I think there's a pretty good chance she will if she was able to travel across the Atlantic Ocean in a plane. I think hopefully she's healthy enough that she would be able to get down to the game. And I don't know. I'm not sure if she would want that, given that everything is going the way that it is right now, and she doesn't seem like the type of person that craves attention. And obviously, her story is remarkable and so mind-boggling to think about everything that they've gone through. But yeah, she's been by his side for a long time, and he's done whatever he's been able to do to be the captain of this team, but also be with her and support her through this process. And it's just a really, really heartwarming story. And if anyone questioned his character, his leadership, his commitment to the team, I have friends that still question his leadership, his voice in the locker room. I think that's null and void at this point. I think he is the best possible leader for his team. He's clearly the most important player on the team, and I couldn't think of a better person to be the captain of this team as the Sabres break this drought. So I'm super stoked, and I think that her presence being with Dahlin in Buffalo will only help him moving forward through the stretch run here at the end of the regular season and going into the playoffs. He's been really, really good for the past 3 months, and I can only imagine what it would look like if he's somehow possibly even better.
Yeah, I agree. And I'm not joking about it, man. Like, if she's there and the reaction and the emotions, like, what's the over under point total for Rasmus Dahlin? Smash the over, because I think he'll have a career night that night.
He got a hat trick the day after it was announced that they lost their baby during this process. So in terms of emotion and meeting the moment, he's already done that this season. Just 2 months ago, I think it was in Toronto. It was on Daryl Stittler night where they celebrated his 10-point game. So I think he would absolutely be very likely to at least get a goal or a couple points. So we'll see. But I think he's kept everything in perspective. He's kept it focused, and I think the guys and the fans really appreciate him.
Yeah, I think the only thing I didn't really get, we have time to get with him, was like just the Tuch contract and his opinion on that. But we talked in length about that already, so probably not going to beat that dead horse. However, like, given the recent news that we've heard that there have been more, I don't want to say meeting in the middle, but I could be wrong. In chat, let me know. Maybe you know if I'm wrong. Did I read that like Jarmo was willing to maybe be a little bit more flexible with his original, contract offer? So I think it was initially reported that was like 8.5, and I heard that there was more flexibility happening either by his side or Tuch's side.
Yeah, I personally didn't read that, but if somebody else has, please chime in.
I could have swore I either heard it on a podcast or I read it somewhere. I could be wrong. I don't know. I'm not reporting that as fact.
I wouldn't be surprised. I think a lot of this discussion is centered around there being some compromise on either end, whether that be the Sabres willing to offer more money or more term, or Alex Tuch willing to take less term to stay on a team to make it more affordable for everybody. And we talked about the Connor McGovern situation, that he took a little bit less money to stay with the Sabres because he loves the community and he loves the team. I didn't
know Connor McGovern played for the Sabres.
You know what I mean with the Bills. I think he could be a good power forward, to be honest. I think his experience as a center, he could be a fourth-line center for sure. But I don't know. I think it's going to work out. The way he's talked about the team surrounding these past 3 months makes me think that it is. I'm hopeful. And if it doesn't, it doesn't. And they'll be able to look back on it and thank him for his service and everything that he provided the community. But I have a feeling that it's going to work out.
Yep. So I did find it. It was Elliot Friedman on 32 Thoughts. I remember listening to it. Buffalo's new regime has budged a bit with Alex Tuch, but obviously not enough yet. Maybe it gets solved before the postseason, but I could see this coming down to playoff performance. If Tuch has a big playoff, it forces the Sabres' hand. And honestly, like, I think the Sabres hand is being kind of forced now because I just don't know if you can have this same type of chemistry and camaraderie and result without Alex Tuch in that room.
Yeah, he's been integral for sure, and that goes back to his upbringing and everything he brings to the team currently tangibly on the ice. Even watching this weekend, he didn't necessarily. Well, he had the big goal to begin the game on Sunday, but his presence out there, his length, especially on the PK, obviously wasn't amazing on Sunday, but just generally is impactful. He makes a huge difference, and he's a very unique type of player that does a lot of different things really well. So it would be a big loss hockey wise, and clearly in the room. The player surveys that Matthew Fairburn did over at the Athletic in the past week, talking about who's the best dressed, who's most likely to be at GM, who could coach down the future. He was one of the first voices on every single answer. He clearly seems to be a massive voice in that room, and a lot of guys respect him. And he seems very funny. He seems to keep it lighthearted, but also be serious when he needs to be. And he clearly has the A for a reason.
100%. I'm gonna kick it back to our sponsor real quick. Thank you again to Fatty Beer Company, Western New York's premier market and tap room with over 300 beers to choose from at 7 different Western New York locations. If you need a beer, get to Fatty Beer. Let them know 2 goalies, 1 Mike sent you. Keep on the lookout for some more information regarding their playoff watch party at their Lancaster location. Obviously, weather permitting and start time permitting. Assuming that it's an evening game, I'd have to imagine it's first time Sabres make the playoffs. It'd probably a primetime game. But their first away game, we will be doing a giant watch party out at Lancaster Fatty, again, weather permitting, shutting down all of Main Street, giant screens at each end of the street. There's going to be street vendors. There's going to be food trucks. It's going to be a blast, man. We did this for the Bills games, and they were so much fun. So many people showed up and showed out. It's going to be a good time. Live podcasts. So make sure you keep an eye out for more information regarding that. Make sure you're following us on all our handles. Shout out again to Extreme Discount Mattress, with Western New York's finest selection of mattresses and adjustable beds. They have 7 different Western New York locations, and their website is extrememattress.com. This is Extreme with an X. They also have a new closeout center at 1625 Walden Avenue in Cheektowaga, where you can get a smoking good deal, up to 80% off, or up to 80% off their already low prices on one-of-a-kinds closeouts and floor models. So make sure you mention that you're a fan of 2 goalies on Mike when you go in to buy a mattress, and you get yourself a free mattress protector. So I personally sleeping on a king-size Scott Living mattress. I've never felt better. Got to take care of your back. So, and of course, Impulse Physical Therapy of Western New York. Hey, Western New York, it is time to ditch the physical therapy clinics that treat you like you are just another number and step into a world where you are at the center of your care. Impulse is owned by Buffalo's only board-certified sports physical therapist. They work one-on-one with science-backed technology like 3D motion analysts and force plates to help you exceed your goals and become the healthiest, strongest version of yourself. So come experience the Impulse difference today and mention this for a discounted $77 assessment visit. They are helping me get back on the ice after more than a year off now. I'm working with their the owner, Alex Peters, with their staff. Again, 5-star facility, 5-star staff. I can't express that enough. Make sure you check them out. Located at 5087 Broadway, Suite 100 in Depew, New York, right next to Catalyst Fitness. Go check them out. Let them know we sent you. Hurls, your final thoughts before we get out of here.
Big game tomorrow. The Bruins are currently down in the third period to the Maple Leafs, actually 3-2. Interesting result there, given the way the Maple Leaf season has gone. And also the Bruins are 26-9-1 at home going into this game. So to have them on short rest, hopefully the Sabres have gotten some rest coming back from the West Coast. They're back on their normal schedule, and they can show well in front of the home crowd, which is undoubtedly going to be pretty raucous tomorrow night. 4-game homestand. I think it's important to keep the good vibes at home going and get as close to clinching as possible, because you don't want to rest guys, but you definitely don't want to be playing your top 4 defensemen 24 plus minutes a night. These guys are going to go through hell in the playoffs, I think Dahlin is going to have a chance to play 28 plus minutes a night, and you want to give these guys as much rest and recovery as possible. So getting hopefully 6 points, 6 out of 8 points on this 4-game home swing, I think would be ideal. And that starts tomorrow night at home against the Bruins.
Yeah. And listen, you also have 3 defensemen currently up in the press box who are probably nipping at the bit to get in this lineup. Obviously, injuries happen, especially in the playoffs. We, above all, know that going back to 05-06 on the blue line. So it wouldn't be a bad idea to get Kesselring in there, to get Connor Timmins returning from a broken leg, and of course get Luke Shen, 18-year veteran of the NHL. So wouldn't be bad to get them some minutes to keep them somewhat fresh. Again, heading into what could be a very long and grueling playoff run, what we hope to be a long and grueling playoff run. And yeah, so we will talk to you guys tomorrow night. I can't wait. It's going to be a blast. I am so excited. This is the final stretch of games. And hopefully we're talking not just about clinching the Atlantic Division, but winning all of the Eastern Conference. That is so crazy to say. If you've enjoyed this podcast, please make sure you're subscribed on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get your podcast. If you are following along on Twitter, you can find myself at Duane S39. That's DUANES 39. You can find my co-host Connor Hurley at CHurls13. The podcast itself at 2 Goalies 1 Mike. And of course, if you're watching along on YouTube, as I see many of you are, please make sure you hit subscribed, hit the bell icon, turn your notifications on so you know when we go live, and smash that like button. Smash it right now while you're watching. Hit it right now, please. So we will talk to you guys later. And as always, go Sabres.